Gentlemen, let's move forward. Eric, I'm going to give you the reins here in a second, but we have a fun a typical topic that we go into here. We're talking about the college football playoffs. And before I let you take over the hosting duties for this segment, I just want to pat myself on the back because you both suck. I'm 8-0. You are not. I am the best college football picker in at the office history.
Where is that mute button?
Right.
There.
Okay. Go ahead, E. Take it over.
All right. Well, let's get into college football mode. I'm going to switch us up right here real quick. I'm just
By the way,
missing.
Noah
There we
asked
go.
Siri to make all his picks because I think every single one was chalk. But that's
No,
okay. You are winning. I am losing. I will own it. But you didn't exactly go out
should
on
own it.
you didn't go out on a limb there, buddy.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it is the semifinals of the college football playoff, the first ever expanded college football playoff. And I got to say, for the first time, these games feel different. And here's what I mean by that. It feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like anything can happen, and either of these games could go either way. I am confident in the Buckeyes, and I will continue to say that if they play like they've been playing, I think they're the best team in college football, period. End of story. But now's where it gets fun. It's the any given Sunday of college football, the any given Saturday. All these teams are good. And both matchups, I think, they could be tight. Who knows? Maybe we will get a blowout. But I don't really know what's going to happen. So for this first game, which is tomorrow night, the Orange Bowl, Penn State versus Notre Dame. Both of these teams have a little bit of question marks coming into this game. They're both very good on defense. Sometimes they leave us wanting more on offense. Notre Dame, they didn't really play anybody. They had a weird loss to Northern Illinois early in the season. That's inexplicable. They're playing good ball right now. They're a well-coached team, and they've been playing outstanding defense. Penn State, they are also defensive. They didn't really have any crazy losses either. They played a tough Ohio State team that beat them by just a few points. By the way, they only scored 6 points on offense that day. The rest were defensive points. And I think it was like 17-13 final if I remember correctly. But they haven't really had those big wins either. They don't really go out and stomp on people, and the offense is a question mark for them as well. I know Noah loves their quarterback. He's going to talk about that. Who's going to show up? Who's going to win? I want to hear from you two. That sets the stage a little bit. We talked about it a little bit as well. It's a little historic because regardless of who wins, we will have the first African-American coach coaching in a national championship game, which is a cool little factor, just worth mentioning. Noah, tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, man. I think this comes at no surprise to any of us. I am the residential Notre Dame fan, after all. We talk about everything that we have going on here. We talk about, Marcus Freeman, the Ohio State alumni, doing his thing over there, being the young, hot, upstart head coach. Team was looking great. The run game's looking great. I don't give a shit about any of it. Give me Drew Aller and the boys. I want the Penn State Nittany Lions. Listen, Jeremiah Love hurt, went down during the last game. Penn State's run D will stop whatever Notre Dame thinks they're going to have going with Riley Leonard, the quarterback who had 90 yards passing in his bowl game. I am going with Penn State. I am going with Drew Aller. I am going with the future quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. That's
wow,
my take.
what a take, Tim. I will just say I got you soon. I know ball. I'll help out. All right, John, give me
Yeah,
your
I
take
gotta
on this
agree.
game.
I gotta agree with Noah. I will say, stepping back and looking at all the playoffs right now, one thing is interesting. Yes, two black head coaches. That's pretty cool. The other thing that I think is interesting is if we lived in the old playoff world, certainly if we lived in the BCS world, none of the four remaining teams would have even had a chance because Ohio State lost twice, Texas lost twice, Penn State lost to Ohio State, Notre Dame had a god awful loss. I think it's cool that we have playoffs for this reason, because these are probably the best 4 teams remaining right now, and they wouldn't have even been in the dance as recently as maybe last year. For me, it's Penn State. I look at Notre Dame and the letdown that they had, the bad loss that they had. I know Eric's not a James Franklin fan. I wouldn't say that I am, but I think this is going to be a huge game for him. I think this is the biggest game of his career. I don't think it's make or break. If he loses, he's not going to get fired, but this is a chance to put the haters to bed and to say, look, we won a big game, national championship semifinal against a quality opponent. And I think the Big Ten is the best conference of football. Penn State's more battle tested. Notre Dame hasn't played anybody. They lost to one of the nobodies they played. Penn State, it's got good quarterback play. They're tougher in the trenches. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points because these defenses are both really good. But I think Penn State's going to win this one, maybe a little bit ugly. But I would be surprised if Notre Dame pulled it out for sure.
Note on that comment, Mo, that Abdul Carter is not ruled out yet, as far as I know. He is questionable for this game. Listen, I've been wrong about Penn State in the past. I have come clean on that. When they took care of Boise State, I said, they've got some momentum going. I do think that they might even have the second best offense of the teams that are left behind Ohio State. That's maybe a stretch you're saying, but Texas has been so inconsistent. That said, what I would like to see is a good close game. What I think we'll see is a good close game. And I've got Notre Dame. I think they're a better coach football team. I know it's a young coach, but what he's done there has been nothing short of great. And yeah, I do think that James Franklin is overrated. He hasn't won anything. If Penn State makes the championship, I will eat my words, because that is winning something. And it will be the first time in 40 years that they've made a national championship. 40 years. There are football programs or schools that we call football schools. Ohio State's a football school. It's always been a football school. Penn State's one of those schools too. They're a fine education as well, but they're a football school. He has had talent. He has had access to money and facilities, and he really hasn't won a thing. He's won one Big Ten championship, and he's beat Ohio State twice. I think that's it, twice. Nothing. And I think they fold here. I think Notre Dame will overcome. Listen, like I said, I will eat my words, but I'm not a believer in James Franklin. I think they need to move on. One of my favorite things after the Tennessee game, one of their fans said that Hoople is just Franklin and orange. I thought that was great because they kind of felt the same way. But as down as we get, the part that bugs me, and I know John's going to, I'm not even going to move on to the next game because I know John's going to talk about this. The part that bugs me is John says Franklin's won some things. He's a good coach, and yet he wants Ryan Day fired. If the Buckeyes don't win a national championship, Day's on the hot seat. The most winningest coach, active coach in college football, he wants to fire, yet he backs James Franklin. So I guess I would say to you, because I know the rebuttal that's coming, would you want James Franklin as the coach of Ohio State?
I'm glad you called this out. If Ryan Day is gone and we have a short list, he would not be my number one pick. But if we said we got rid of Day and replaced him with James Franklin, do I think that's a good hire? Yeah, I think he's that caliber of coach.
Okay.
You have to remember, Eric. No, you have to judge people. I know this is always well, if you don't win a championship, you're a failure. And I go, no, there's a lot of gray area.
I don't think that. I just think he can't recruit worth a shit, which would make him bad for Ohio State. But please continue.
Well, other than Michigan and Ohio State, who's been the best team in the Big Ten since James Franklin got to Penn State? It's Penn State.
Oregon.
They just joined.
Oregon. Well, 1 year of Oregon.
You wanted an answer. I gave you an answer.
I said since he joined, not since last weekend. Jesus. No, it's you go against really good talent. It's kind of like saying whoever's coaching Ole Miss is a failure. Well, outside of Alabama and Georgia, Ole Miss has been really good for a long time in the last few years. Like, it's different expectations. If your expectation is national championship, I would agree with you 100%. But I don't think the Penn State fans or the Penn State culture or where the program was going back to the Jerry Sandusky and all the stuff where they've come, I don't think national championship or bust is the expectation for Penn State, despite the fact that they've won one in long time ago, but in not too distant history. They have the pedigree, they have the name, but Penn State is not a national championship or bust. Their coaches list is beat Michigan or Ohio State, hopefully play for the Big Ten championship, win it, and we'll go from there. I think he's lived up to the, I mean, if you looked at what Penn State could be coming into this season, he has either already hit or surpassed expectations.
You've said it's a storied program, and you followed it with, he just needs to beat one of the big schools. I would argue that Wisconsin's had a better run since James Franklin's been coached than Penn State has.
I think you'd be wrong about that, but go ahead. We can pull facts on that one.
They've made the Big Ten
later.
championship several times.
They haven't won one.
Well, no, but
and Penn State has, so that's pretty much the end of that argument, in my view. But
listen, I could be wrong here, and I do think this will be a close game. I think it's going to be a defensive game. If Abdul Carter is out, I think that is notable. I think that who wins the line of scrimmage and who wins the turnover battle here is going to win. And you could say that about any football game, of course.
For sure.
I don't know. I just, even if he makes the national championship, short of us not making it, he's not winning it, that's for sure. That's a hell of a season. I'll give him that. Winning the Orange Bowl and getting there, okay, he won a big game. I will give him that. Up to this point, I'm sorry, he has not won a big game, in my opinion. He won a Big Ten championship, that's great.
I'm kind of in the middle of both of you, right? Like, I don't want him to be Ohio State's head coach, but I also think you, Eric, hate him to the highest of degrees sometimes when it isn't deserved for where he's at. And like what John's saying,
I don't respect him as a coach. There's a difference.
And I didn't say I wanted him.
Tomato is what I meant by that.
I want to go back to the recruiting piece.
I do not want him as Ohio State's coach.
He can't recruit. He's not very inspirational to play for, from what I can see. He complains more than anything. His press conferences are one of my favorite things to watch because it's always somebody's fault. It's the refs. They have more money than us. Always something. It's never him or his coaching. He's not an inspiring guy. We talk about all the time, to be a head football coach, you need to be a leader of men. I'm not in the locker room with him. I just don't see it from James Franklin.
I don't.
And just one more addendum. I think you're a little wrong about Penn State fans because I think they're pretty sick of him too. I've heard chatter. No, Penn State fans.
I thought you said I think you're wrong on Penn State fans. I don't know if they're sick of him or not.
Well, Go ahead, you said that they're ecstatic of where they're at.
I said their expectations aren't national championship or bust. So given what he's given to work with, I think he's done as much with what he's had as can be expected. And for the record, too, Noah. Well, so then I would flip it on its head. By the way, Noah, I don't want him as Ohio State's coach. I said if Day is out, I would want him to interview and be on the list. But if you think that this man can't recruit, even though players like Saquon Barkley have gone there and played well, my question would be, what has Ryan Day won with a lot more talent, a lot more opportunity? Because we haven't won a national championship.
2 Rose Bowls.
Oh, a Rose Bowl
championship. Rose Bowl was the
John,
pinnacle
you can't
of the
make that argument. He has a way better resume than Franklin. We're talking about bowl games. We're talking about even big time matchups. You could
taking them to a natty.
You guys are missing. You guys are literally count
Penn State, Ohio.
No, you're moving the goalpost.
No,
We're not missing the point.
I'm not. You said James Franklin can't win a big game, and he hasn't won anything. When his expectations are not to win a national championship and not to win a Big Ten championship, just to compete. And then I say, what has Ryan Day won? And you said, well, the Rose Bowl twice. That is not – nobody gives a shit about the Rose Bowl at Ohio State unless it's the national championship or semifinal. You got to beat Michigan. You got to win the Big Ten. You got to win a national championship. He has failed to do all 3 of those on a consistent basis. I'm not running the guy out of town, but if the narrative is James Franklin hasn't won anything. My counter question is, with higher expectations, with more talent, and with the number one country, system and program, what has Ryan Day won that makes you so comfortable with him being this team's coach?
The winningest active coach in college football.
Okay, not when it matters, but
I think
hopefully
this
that
is a good
changes.
transition.
Tennessee
Good
didn't
transition.
matter. So you're saying that let's throw this up since we're talking Ohio State. You're
Right.
saying that James Franklin's 2 playoff wins were big. Those were big wins, but
No,
you're saying that ours weren't?
yes, they all were big wins. Ryan Day has won some big games and he's a good coach. James Franklin has won some big games and he's a good
Then
coach.
why did
I
you
am
just say
arguing
what
for
has
them.
Ryan Day won?
So you're not. I'm saying my question to you. You said James Franklin hasn't won anything,
I know
and if
what I
that's
said. I'm
your
asking what you
logic,
said.
apply that logic to Ryan Day and tell me what he's running. You said, well, the Rose Bowl and a couple of games. Well, that's the same shit James
We
Franklin
weren't
has won.
talking about Ryan Day though. We were talking
If you're
about James
talking,
Franklin. You
if
don't
you're
have to draw a
talking,
comparison between the coaches. It's 2 different programs. Why even do that?
Because you're holding two people with very similar jobs to completely different standards. You're saying James Franklin never won anything when he just won 2 big games. And you're saying Ryan Day's won big games. We just won 2 big games. What's the difference between him beating SMU and us beating Tennessee? They're
Ryan
both
Day
big
took
games.
over, and there was never a period of time where we questioned. I mean, those losses to Michigan, 2
to
of
play
those years,
devil's
we don't need to rehash this.
4
to
losses to
play
Michigan.
devil's
Yeah.
advocate for a second, let me jump in here. To give Erickson backing, this is before the 2024 season. This is in June. His record, James Franklin's record versus top 10 teams, 3-17. His record versus ranked opponents, 12-26. There's
Explain, Jonathan.
Yeah. You said it against ranked teams is what in 26? 12, right?
Yeah.
So that means he's won 12 big games. I didn't say he won all of them.
That's
You're
not,
asking
I
for this
mean,
guy to go
ranked is top
undefeated?
25. That's a bit
Let's
much.
move on to the Ohio State game because we're just moving the goalposts and bickering about the same stuff. Eric, take it away.
Ohio State is in the Cotton Bowl once again. This time, it means something. This time, the Stars are not sitting; they're playing, and they have a foe that they have some guys over there that they're used to. One, Mr. Quinn Ewers, who was an Ohio State Buckeye, not for very long, but he was a Buckeye. He left so that he could get more playing time. There's a lot of storylines coming into this. There's snow coming towards Dallas. The fact that they're calling it a home game because it is in Dallas, it's in Texas. I know that's like from here to basically DC, away from Austin. Texas is a big state, but it does certainly feel like a home matchup. The Buckeyes definitely have the momentum going in. I think Arizona State scared the hell out of Texas, and I'm guessing that they're questioning things. That said, that Quinn Ewers, he is looking mighty confident. The question is, which Quinn Ewers are we going to get, and which Texas are we going to get? It should be noted they have been consistently the number one defense all year. Texas has, and we know defense wins championships. But Ohio State, they've got quite the defense themselves, and they have the offense that is just unreal. Jeremiah Smith, I know everybody's sick of hearing it. I know they're sick of hearing he's a true freshman. They're comparing him to NFL greats. Like, he could enter the NFL right now and play and make an impact like a Julio Jones. That's insane level of talent for the age he is. They've never seen, they say guys like Megatron, Julio, they weren't this good at the same age. It's actually ridiculous. So, big matchup. This is Friday, 7:30. OSU's favored by 6. I think it stayed around 6. And I don't know. Well, who do you guys got? Noah, give me your take.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to call out John for not coming to watch the game with me and you because we'll be watching the game together, Eric. The last game,
Little
John, me, and
ridiculous.
Eric were together and watched the game, and John's not going to be there, so he's a fake friend for that.
And if we lose,
That being
all
said,
your fault.
yeah, it's all your fault.
I'll just blame it on James Franklin.
Tim's gonna blow a gasket in the chat. He's been for those who aren't watching the live stream, he's been telling us to move on from James Franklin this whole time. Listen, it should come to no surprise that the three of us over here wearing Ohio State gear are of course going Ohio State. Will Howard looked lights out, incredible in the Rose Bowl, completing 17 of 26 passes for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Jeremiah Smith is an absolute dog. As you said, this team is just, when they're firing on all cylinders, flat out the best team in college football. Give me the Ohio State Buckeyes.
John?
It is 100% impossible to argue with the logic here. I tried to go in and look for reasons that if we don't do this and Texas could win. Listen, Texas is a good football team. I want to call out the fact that outside of Ohio State, who's playing the best and is the best in my view right now, I think Oregon and Texas are the next two best teams in the country. Oregon was dispatched pretty handily by the Buckeyes last game. I think it's going to happen again with Texas this game. And I think it comes down to the opposite of what it usually is with the SEC gets together with the Big Ten, right? It used to be like, oh, the SEC has all this speed. Well, Ohio State has that speed advantage at the skill positions. But the other thing you have to do, what Michigan did when they actually beat Ohio State, and what Oregon did a little bit in the game, I wouldn't say they stopped us, but you got to win up front, and your front four has to be able to plug holes and at least slow down the run. And on the other side, you have to be able to run the ball. When Texas loses this year, they can't run. They run up 300 yards of rushing offense against Texas A&M, and when they lost to Georgia, they had like 32 yards of rushing. Ohio State's defense is as good as Georgia's, and if Texas is going to rush the ball for 50 yards, it's going to be over at the end of the first quarter. You're going to have to wait till the end of the game. Now, I expect Texas to show up. They're going to coach. They got a good coach, too. They're going to coach them up. They do have talent. I don't see Texas rolling over in some of the ways that we've seen out of Tennessee and Oregon. I think at halftime we're going to go, okay, shit, the Buckeyes are only up 7, 10, couple field goals or something like that, and they pull away later. But I think the Bucs still end up rolling by a couple touchdowns. I'd take them to cover. Give me the Buckeyes, and give me a Buckeyes Penn State All Big Ten National Championship.
Eric, right. I'm ready.
I mean, I'm just going to put it up immediately. Obviously, Ohio State wins this game. There's no way I would pick against them. It's not the homer take, though. It's just they have the best talent out there, period. Their roster, it's unmatched. It's unrivaled. I should say I'm sick of hearing about the $20 million team because Texas and Oregon supposedly might have even had more NIL money. Phil Knight's funneling money like crazy into Oregon. But the Buckeyes develop talent arguably better than anybody in the country, especially right now. That talent this year is cohesive. I will say that for Texas to have a chance in this game, they need to force turnovers and they need to hit Will Howard. If they can hit Howard and get to him, they'll have a shot. But the way our defense is playing, I mean, what do you want? Both sides of the ball were just dominating. And
what was it, 32-0 at halftime of the Oregon game or something?
It was 34-0.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, you're exactly. Like that's dominance on both sides.
The downside for us is it's another ACC crew reffing this thing. And I'm hoping that the team themselves aren't complaining about the lack of holding calls, because then we're just going to get holding calls against us all day. That's how it generally works. But hopefully they clean that up a bit. But our defense is getting to guys being held, Jack Sawyer being held on every single play. We're still getting to, in the case of Oregon, to Oregon's quarterback. Will that be the case with Quinn Ewers? I hope so. Arizona State was getting home, and they're a much smaller D-line than we have. I think we will control both lines of scrimmage. I think that we will see a cameo of Arch Manning. I'm not worried about that. But more than anything, the Buckeyes have been playing angry. They've been playing angry and with their hair on fire, and I don't think that changes. I think they're well prepared. They've heard the outside noise. Whether it took Michigan to bring that out or not, I don't really care at this point. They're on a mission, and they've said it just like Kobe said it. Job's not done, and they're living that, and they're the embodiment of that. Listen, the only way Texas wins this is if they come out and punch us in the mouth strong. I still like us in a comeback. I don't want to have to see Day coach a close game. I think he's an excellent coach, but I give it 2 touchdowns. We win by 2. 2
I'm
touchdowns.
excited for this game, guys. And Eric, you beat me to it. John, I want to know, do you think we see Arch Manning?
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you guys a little deeper question. So once Georgia's starting quarterback went down, coming into the playoffs, I was like, if the Buckeyes don't win, what scares you the most? The first and the obvious one was them having a Michigan layover and sucking against Tennessee. We already talked about that. It didn't happen. The second is,
but
does Arch Manning come in and play well for long enough? They can keep Texas around, right? They have a starting quarterback. Quinn Ewers comes in, he gets hurt or doesn't play well or something happens. And they go, let's give this kid a look. And he throws, 2 touchdowns on 2 possessions, and he's got him in a game that's 14-17. Is Arch Manning enough of a wrinkle and enough of a talent to give the Ohio State defense issues? I don't think so, but it's worth
no, because you're replacing
discussing.
another pro style quarterback with another pro style quarterback. It's not
Right.
like you're going from him to a prime Russ Wilson scrambling, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think Arch is really talented, but it's a similar style of play.
Yeah.
Why
And you're
should that
talking about a
change
kid that
anything?
hasn't got to play enough yet. Like, I think he could be that type of talent come next year for this Texas Longhorns team. Right now, though, coming in, maybe not being as warm as you would be as a starter, warming up before the game and getting the first offensive snap, I don't think it's going to affect anything. I just was curious if you guys thought that we were going to see him. Eric, you
No.
said
I think
that.
we will for sure.
I think
I
we'll see
don't
him
think we
too.
will.
Really?
No?
Unless it's something like Quinn gets hurt or something like that, obviously. But in terms of like what their game plan is for the Buckeyes, I don't think we'll see him.
If
You
we're up
remember when,
21-0 in the first again, I think they throw him in.
Yeah,
Well,
I do
that-
too.
Yeah, but I'm talking more so as a designed game plan. Regardless of what happens, we plan to get Arch Manning in there at some point during the game.
I think they'll have
that's
specialized packages with him. Not super often, but I think they're designed.
fair.
Do you remember the Cardell Jones out of nowhere 12 gauge? Of course you do. It's our last national championship. That's the Arch Manning fear factor I have in the back of my head. Does this kid just come in and start chucking it all over the yard, and we look up and we're like, oh shit?
But I don't.
Like, he is
I get
really
what you're,
good.
I get what you're saying, but that wasn't all 12 gauge. That was, Zeke 85 yards through the heart of the South. That was a flea flicker with what's his name, wide receiver throwing a touchdown pass. I mean, those games were just coached out of their minds. It wasn't
Yep.
all put on Cardale's shoulders. So
That's fair.
I don't think
Listen.
we see that.